Nova, what you cooking, man?
What's up? Oh, I'm muted. How did that happen?
Good morning and welcome back to Iron Minds this beautiful Tuesday morning out there. I am Michael Lombard and I'm joined with my wonderful co host today, Nick Klingensmith. And for those of you who are just tuning in, jump in live. By the way, we do Iron Minds every Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. Central Time, God's time, Chicago time, whatever you'd like to call it, where we come on here and we talk freight and fitness, basically. But what's most important, and kind of just in case you are new here, depending on what you're doing, we do this show and we're doing some form of movement, active movement, whatever that might be. That is the whole point. We have it at 6 a.m., so it's a good early time for you to also maybe get some movement, no matter where you are, as well. That could be. You can throw this on if you're already at work. You can do some reverse lunges. You can go for a walk yourself. You can get on your walking pad, but hey, that's what we're here to do. We're here to grow a community built off this within the industry and beyond. But other than that, what's going on, Nick?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
All right, cool. My phone told me I was on mute, and I'm like, "What? No, man, I'm good. I'm. I'll tell you what. Right before the show, we mentioned, what do we want to wrap about today? And as I'm now in the beginning of week 4 of my first full Ironman training, all I think about are the healthy habits, the good habits, and like the intentional activity that I'm getting as a result of training. Does that make sense? It's not even like the training that I'm so excited about right now. It's actually I'm being more intentional with my time. I'm taking more active walks with my dogs. I'm just being a lot more intentional about everything that I'm doing. And I believe that this week, yesterday and today, I'm actually starting to see some things begin to adapt to my training again, and it's all about progress, and it's very exciting.
You bring up a great point. There's a great guy. He lives in Austin. He's very very much big in the entrepreneurial space. His name's Eric Hinman, and he made a post the other day about why anybody, or like it was just why you should do an Ironman, and it's designed, and the post was designed to speak to anybody, because again, Ironman is something anybody can literally do it. It just, you have to put in some level of work, whether it's learning new things like biking and swimming, and running. And he gives a great synopsis. It was like a carousel on Instagram. I was talking about why you should do Ironman. One of the biggest reasons in there he puts in is like, you, number one, at the end of it, you can, and this is why and this is why I talk about it so much, why I'm always encouraging you definitely walk out, like once you reach the finish line of an Ironman, you're not the same person anymore. You're a completely different person on the other side. But what's most important is during that training block, the reason why becoming an Ironman is so great is because the training is so long. Like you're looking at anywhere from 6 months to a year, depending on where somebody is. And and like, it's very inconvenient. There's going to be early mornings, there's going to be late nights. It's not exactly when you want to. Where there's other things you can kind of get away with quote unquote no training, in essence, and you can kind of like, you can't just do it off the cuff. Like you can't do there's you will hurt yourself unless you're like already like some sort of like UFC elite athlete. You really just can't come off the street and do it, and it forces you to take a training block seriously. And what's most important is, or wise is, you're going to start planning out your bike rides. You're automatically going to be getting better at scheduling and organizing your time because of the training, because you've got to fit it in these weird times. So you're going to know what you're doing in 2-3 weeks. You're doing a little bit of self-organization, because you have to know when you're going to get these swims and these long runs and long bikes in are going to be. And it's so, from an organizational and professional standpoint, you're just, by committing to one thing, you're actually trickling down, and you're solving, and you're building habits amongst other parts of your life.
And right now I'm benefiting from just a lot of the habits that I had in my life that I began to slip away from. And one thing I really enjoyed doing every night was stretching and meditating at the end of the night for 20, 30 minutes. And I'll be honest, I got out of the habit. And it's not even my mobility that suffered so much as my mindset, because I just began to feel more and more hurried. And so, even though, yeah, training for Ironman is a massive time suck, it forces that intention, because it's wildly important that I do that stretching at night. Not only to stay not injured, but to get my mind right. So I'm back to doing that again. I force myself to do it rather than being lazy or getting tired and going into bed. And I've been sleeping better. I've been getting up to do my trainings. I don't know if you've seen, I've been doing a kind of like a weekly vlog or whatever on this every week. And my A1C is down 1%, or 0.1. It's down. I'm almost down 5 pounds already just from the last couple of weeks. These are just parts of the natural transition, transformation of doing these things. And I talk about this in some of my videos sometimes, that like people confuse fitness with, some motiversity YouTube video with people hating their life and screaming into the wind. The number one thing that fitness takes is time. It just takes the time to do it. And I'll tell you what else, the most exciting thing, I mentioned this before too, like I'm thoroughly enjoying my walks. Like I actually enjoy walking. And I think that I look at it as a supplement to my training. Not only is it great recovery, not only is it like awesome time with my dog and stuff like that, but it's just more time on feet, and it's a good way to spend it.
Yeah, being on two legs for long hours a day is, no matter what, going to build up that tolerance. I know you mentioned reestablishing some habits that you had. I know that's one I got to get. From one thing that I lost is, like, I read a good amount of books in 2024, 2025, only a few, and it's like I need to get back into, and it's it's kind of a double-edged sword. I'm looking to I'm looking to try to ramp up content this year. I'm going to do my podcast on Tuesday nights. So I'm going to be having one on Tuesday mornings and Tuesday nights. And then also, I've been producing regular content on Instagram that's been performing well. And and the thing is, when I'm engaged on Instagram, and there's people to talk to and people to connect with, I'm fine. I'm not giving myself enough time to read a book. And like, I think it's 75 hard getting those 10 pages of a book. I think that might be my one new focus, is no matter what, I should read 10 pages of a book each night, just taking that one step from 75 hard, because there's a lot of, what I've realized is there's so much motivation and discipline habits and educational information that I've learned, especially from coaching, from books. And so I need to crack in more of them so I can keep learning, developing, growing in this way, to keep myself a resource, especially for the industry when it comes to driver health stuff. Which cool stuff to mention on that in a couple minutes too, with Project 61. I'm stoked.
Well, one thing on books before we segue to that, because I want to ask you about your half too. But I actually reading more of this, not just reading more, reading 26 books specifically, is my 5th goal for the year. And I actually just finished 80/20 Triathlon by Matt Fitzgerald. Not sure.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I like his books. I've been reading ever since How Bad Do You Want It was the first one I read, and then it was like 80/20 running or 80/20 training, and I've subscribed to it ever since. And so I just finished that. I started the audio version of Atomic Habits this morning. It's been on my list for about ever. And then I'm also reading a Jack Reacher book too, because when I read 2 books a month, I like to read one that stimulates the creative side of that, and then I like to read one that Well, stimulates either learning, thinking, processing, whatever it is that a lot of other nonfiction books do. Nonfiction books do, and Jared Ross from eCarrier said it once, and I love how he put it. But he's like, man, he's like, I love to read. He's like, someone takes their life experience, puts it in 250 pages, and and I get to just digest it all.
Well, dude, there's something. I'm glad you actually brought that up because there's something about fictional books, whatever it might be, whatever the subject is. Like I obviously, I'm a history guy. Anybody who knows me knows I love reading about history, something like Napoleon biography or something about, Ulysses Grant. But really, there is, and there's some people who are under the terms of like they think there's no reason to read either novels or like kind of or anything that's a fiction book, but really like stories and storytelling has been going, I mean, this has been going on for thousands of years. You go to the Greek myths and all these these story Greek mythology in general, like storytelling of, I'm trying to think like crap like King Arthur and stuff, and pulling the stone out, like those like epic tales of heroes
Camelot.
from yeah, Camelot type stuff. Like those kinds of fantasy stories are like, I mean, that's what you raise your kids and your family off of. Like those are what really, I mean, those kinds of books. Yeah, nonfiction is great. Like you read the Napoleon biography, you kind of you read Sun Tzu's The Art of War. You can take some pieces out of it and kind of apply it to your life and maybe what you're doing. But when it comes to believing in oneself and like you want to talk about getting fired up, like some of those fantasy fiction stories of bravery, and even if it's freaking something Tom Clancy or Jack Reacher, like that's not, it's kind of present in modern day. It's just like what that does for your brain is completely different because it's not true, but yet you're reading and you're kind of you're creating the story in your mind as you're reading it. And what that does, I mean, what that does for you and and just mental health in general is totally changes things. I mean, there's entire, you know, there's entire what's it called, festivals like Comic-Con based off of this stuff. Like it
Yeah.
gives people purpose. Like those fantasy and those fake stories have given people purpose since the days of the Odyssey.
And I love the way that you put that too. It's funny. I mean, Greek mythology, right? It's like we've been reading fiction since we were in school, and I mean, I'm a fiction. Most people don't know this about me, but I'm a fiction writer too. Most people don't know about me because that's never been published yet. But so that's how like anything else, you want to model the masters, read, find what you like, get your insights, find your voice. But it's also just another way of entertaining, and what's 30 minutes of reading a fiction book or 30 minutes of Netflix. So I might be able to, at least my mind might drift away more when I'm reading a book. And don't get me wrong, I like the Netflix too. But yeah, so I'm into the reading thing a lot more this year. Part of the problem is, I'm a writer. So if I have time, I'm going to go write rather than read. And that's one thing that I need to be more intentional and disciplined about. And I've told you before where, I have a playlist on YouTube that I've been curating for a long time. And it's often whatever injuries I need to rehab. I have a whole bunch of swimming drill videos and stuff like that, bike workouts, bike rehab. I mean, all things Ironman are in there. All of the world's known information is available at our fingertips.
At all times. That might be the ultimate mic drop right there. Yeah, what's the problem with reading fiction books if you're watching Netflix? Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. Most of TV is not educational or nonfiction stuff. Yeah, there's some true crime stuff you can watch, but for the most part, any viral TV show people are watching is normally just a story, like, TV shows that are popular like Severance and all that other stuff, like, and people, there's entire forums dedicated to people talking about these TV shows when you got fiction novels that are the same thing.
Now, that said, on the bike this morning to keep myself entertained, I was watching the movie Volcano with Tommy Lee Jones. And I don't care what anybody says, that movie's awesome and wildly realistic.
There you go. I'm gonna have to rewatch that. I don't think I've watched that in quite some time.
I like problem solving movies. Does that make sense? Like, I just like it, it's a good flick. I think it's a good flick. I mean, it's cheesy. It's a disaster movie, but what have you? Speaking of non-disasters, dude, congrats on the PR. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I definitely want to dive into that half marathon because like at this point, at this stage of like just like fitness and racing. Again, like it's really geared towards actual like now like the focus is performance. And I really wanted to do that same race last year in 90 minutes or less. The weather really wasn't that cooperative. It was last year's weather was pretty bad. I mean, blustering winds. It was easily 10 degrees colder than it was this past Sunday, with like just like absolutely, just bone chilling winds. Like, and what I was wearing, like last year, I had to wear the Adidas leggings, shorts, a long sleeve shirt, a t-shirt over it, the ski mask. And then I wore a zip up fleece that I threw away between miles 4 and 5. So it was like I was pretty frigid for that whole one. And then, but for this one, the volume's been there. The fitness was definitely there for it. It was still a little bit colder, like the first 3 miles, like as you're really trying to take care of your breathing, like you're getting some cold air in, which is tough, but there was no wind, there was no humidity, so it wasn't a wet cold. It was still chilly. It was still, 30, it was still literally like 32 degrees at the, right around the time the race started, but almost like an East Coast 32, where it was just like tolerable. Like I had a zip up at the start that I was throwing away, and I took it off 5 minutes before the gun went off because we felt warm. And but it was an hour into, the final time was 1:29:19. But it was I can tell you, like, yeah, the fitness was there, but it was mental. Like, it was the mind that had to do it, because I knew even at the starting line, I was just like, in my head, I was just like, oh my God, like it kind of came up quick because I was just in Florida with Mark and Jeremy for Project 61 stuff. And in my head, I was just like, oh my God, I feel like I felt rushed to the starting line, so to speak. And so I knew it was going to kind of be a mental, as the race was starting, I was just like, crap, I've got to fucking put the hammer down. Like there is no easing into it. Like, to do this time, there's no coming out, you've got to come out hot. Like that thing, like my first mile had to be like, because to run a sub not 90-minute half marathon, your mile pace time has to be 6:51. So you can't just come out the gate, unless you want to come out the gate really slow and your first mile is 7:30, but then you've got to be running that much faster later on in the race to make up for it. So you've got to come out quote unquote hot to do it. And I knew that the first, yeah, and then maintain it. And I knew that the first 6 miles were a done deal. Like, oh yeah, the first 6 is going to be relatively easy, like challenging but doable. And then it was going to be the back 6 or 7 that was going to be a dogfight. And that's exactly how it worked. I mean, first 6 miles I was cruising, and then that's when I started to feel I knew I needed to really give myself an own kick in the butt. And it was really a mental battle of me back and forth, having to reconvince myself to keep pushing my body that quickly. And then I caught the 90-minute pacer. So when I started with probably like the 140, like, because I couldn't get up front, it was too crowded. So I didn't start with any sort of pacer. I kind of just started on my own. And then I caught the 130 pacer. And when I caught him, I was like, and I was right behind him. I wasn't talking or saying anything, but I was like right there. My brain was just like, oh, yep, we're locked in. This was around mile 7. And then I was hanging with the 90-minute pacer. Like, I was like, perfect. If I just stick with this guy, I'm going to win no matter what. And I felt pretty comfortable just sticking with him. But then that's where I caught this second wind, where I was just like, where as I was running, I felt it. And people and anybody who's a runner will feel this. Like, I felt it in me. I felt like I was holding some reins back, and I was like, I've got more. And then that's when I took off, kept rolling. The last mile of that course, even though it's a net downhill, it's quote unquote a net downhill course. You're only losing, maybe you're only going down, maybe there's still 250 feet elevation gain, and then you lose, and then there's a drop of 500 or so. So it's yes, technically a downhill race, but not by much. And the last mile is like kind of a soul crusher, gets you with 2 good pulls before you really get to the finish. So it's like it's not a gimme. It's not a roller coaster drop right to the finish. So you kind of got to earn it at the end. And but yeah, it was a mental fight more than it was a physical. Like, I kept having to go back and forth but it's a hometown race. There's a lot of friends I saw cheering on the course, and I didn't know where and when they would be. And those right there really give you a boost when you hear your name out when you least expect it from people from run clubs and in general. So I mean, I'm stoked on it. You know, it's a new, and what's crazy is again, and for anybody out there listening, is like it just proved once again that there's no limits to this. Just thinking about how I worked up towards just a half marathon, knowing full well I'm doing Austin Marathon in a month. Like my focus wasn't this. My focus, like it's not my main focus, but volume wise and fitness wise, it was there. But if I really dial in more with speed work and track workouts and getting some more volume, and I, as opposed to how I currently do things, I mean, there's like I can still get like that. There's still room for improvement. Like I could still get faster at this for the next, you know, 10 plus years. I can improve on this. Like that. There's no limits to it. I really can keep going. Like there's no ceilings to what you can do on this. And I think and I really realized that there's no ceilings, right? You know, that summer of 2024, as soon as I signed up for Ironman Florida, like once I had the belief, there is no limit. There's really no limit to what we can do. And I think once people finally understand that there's truly no limits to what you can do, and then you become unstoppable.
You know, every time there's something I think I can't do, and I defy that reality. It doesn't matter how big or small. It completely redefines the space that I live in. I'm rewriting my keynote in a new version, and you know, it's funny. I mean, you tell your story, and then you read your story, and you think about your story. You Different lessons get extracted from your story, and I think a lot of that reflects back on what you're going through at the time too. But just so much of the limiting beliefs that we have in our lives are created by ourselves to keep us stuck, to keep us in the cage, in the cave. Well, yeah, I guess the cage too. It's almost scary when you wonder. It's easier to be like, oh, I can't do that, than to think about, wow, what might I be capable of without excuses? And I mean, I test that all the time, and I'm a good example of it because you know, just diabetes alone, I was convinced that I couldn't do the things that I do. It would be too hard to go running out in the woods. It would be impossible for me to swim an hour and a half, 2 hours without being able to check my blood sugars. I still don't know how I'm going to pull that one off, but we'll get there. And then when I do, I know that I can do it. You know, and that will be the new world that I live in. The fact that I've run 6 marathons, even though I'm not like trained for it, I know that I can, in fact, train and get there. You know, every time we do something we think we can't, we redefine the space that we live in, and it doesn't go backwards.
And this is what's been great about the internet, in a way too, is kind of pre social media and pre internet. There really was no convincing, and pre like just storytellings in general, like not knowing about guys like freaking Goggins and other stories of people getting through adversity. It's only in any story you had of people who like broke through some sort of adversity, you know, pre-internet, like early 2000s, 90s, like it was earth shattering, and it was really just only in book form. But now, like, no matter what you're going through, there's somebody you can find who navigated it, whatever it is. I mean, at the race on Sunday, my friend's girlfriend, you know, she is coming back off of a surgery. She had like a piece of her colon removed because she had this thing going on where her intestines were compressing, and so it was kind of like attacking, I forget the name of it, but had something going on with her intestines, like all this stuff, and is, you know, coming back into this race, and doing a half marathon. I mean, there's so many people. You know, the most inspiring part is when we were walking back to the cars after the race. I mean, I was seeing, you know, obese people, like, you know, 300-pound dudes, with their headphones in, still doing this race. It's going to take them 3+ hours to do the half marathon, but they're out there doing it because they're just trying to prove something to themselves. And, you know, I get that there's like, and it's, when it comes to excuses, when it comes to either, you know, back pain or these little ailments we have, they're always like, they're always going to hold you back. They're always going to draw you down. But there is, like, especially for any sort of back issues or for any injuries people think that they have, once you realize that there's a way out of them, and you don't take once you've just realized you can't take no for an answer on things, like you can become unstoppable. Like there, and you're able to see that now. No matter what, you can Google whatever it is you're going through, and you'll find somebody who came out on the other side who ended up doing something psychotic, like a 100-mile race or an Ironman or something, and they're not special. They're not like they weren't born gifted. No, nobody is like born with some sort of inherent gift to be able to get through this. It's just a matter of locking down and committing to it.
The back injury part, like this baffles people when I tell them I have 7 herniated discs and like permanent nerve damage in several areas. If I had listened to my doctors, I would be sedentary and living in pain. A fitness, active lifestyle, literally defying what the doctors have told me, have improved my quality of life and significantly reduced my back pain. Like
I mean,
motion is lotion.
you can't really you can't mess that stuff up, which is why I'm super excited about what we did last week in Florida, filming video content. You know, back in 2024, Mark and I Mark had drummed up this curriculum that is supposed to go into CDL schools, and I helped him with it, and now this curriculum is going to be going into thousands of CDL schools throughout the country, and the entire message of it preaches. It kind of preaches everything we talk about on Iron Minds, from small habits, from not overhauling your lifestyle, everything like that. And it's hopefully can be the keyhole people can, put their key in to help them unlock that first threshold of building healthy habits, where if they pick one thing out of that curriculum and stick with it, then it can unlock their mind. And Mark and I were kind of talking last week where, how great the OffShift app is, and this curriculum is so great. But Mark was kind of saying, he's like, how do we get people to kind of think and believe how you did? Like, that's very, very hard. And we were just talking about issues of the industry. I was just like, I know it's hard. I was like, the industry's fractured. We have so many issues between broker relationships and everything like that. And I was essentially saying, I was like, it's why the environment in general needs to change within communities, from the top down, from how companies are, from who's working at these companies, and how the entire culture needs to shift into this community-based, into this community-focused type of industry. Because that's what people talk about, and they always talk about the good old days. People are always glory daying in trucking, talking about a brotherhood. That's what needs to come back, and really, we've got to be the ones who are going to take ownership of it. Like nobody else is, and it's a community that is going to help people believe that they can, in fact, move through the challenges and the rigors of the job and want to exceed and excel and stay healthy.
In my my first book, I mentioned back when I was, long before I ever discovered Spartan, long before I was ever into really any sort of endurance. I was 227 pounds, and I remember I texted my boss one morning, and I was at the gym, and I weighed 216, and it was like something I never thought I'd see under 220 again. I figured I was just going to be a fat kid, and that was the life I was going to have to live. And I was stuck and blah, 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 blah. And I just kept making all these excuses. I'm about $185 today, which I fluctuate between there and 190, give or take. 216. And just those couple pounds, not even from 227, from the 219 to the 216 was all the faith that I needed that I could keep going. That was the break. Those 3 pounds told me that I was wrong about everything I believed about myself.
Just that first little bit. That's why, I off the rip, whenever I'm talking to somebody who's extremely at risk, which by at risk, I'm talking like extremely overweight. When you tell somebody, like if somebody does and people go through this, there's people doing dry January right now, or there's people, or I tell them to give up soda. If you just stop that one thing, like if you just switch to diet soda, you will see 5 pounds evaporate off of you almost what feels like instantaneously. And if that doesn't prove that this is what it is, and when it comes to the food stuff, we've got to look at the numbers. The average American is eating 3,500 calories a day, and the average person is exercising maybe 20 minutes a day. Like, that's what we have. We it's not that difficult. It's not that hard to realize. Like, all we have is a movement problem. It is a movement and consumption problem. There really is only one weird trick in order to change your entire life and mindset on what you're able to achieve. And it's just from the littlest things. And it can turn into what you've become. It can turn into being 280 pounds and then running marathons as a truck driver. Anything that you want, just from just from that little change. Like, that's why it doesn't need to be some sort of groundbreaking insanity. It's really, the internet doesn't do it justice. Like, if I post a transformation photo from 2018 to today, it's like, oh my God, this must have been insane. This guy must have just absolutely locked in. Absolutely not. Over the course of those years, there is just consistent work over time. There was nothing that was lost. There was no, I didn't, does my life look different today than it did in 2018? Sure. Do I party less? Sure. But I party less, but I'm way more satisfied, way happier, and way more content with how my life is.
And if that isn't a place to drop the mic, I don't know what is.
Yeah, man. Good to come on here on a Tuesday. Appreciate anybody who's jumped in. Iron Minds on Tuesday. We're here every Tuesday at 6 a.m. Central Time. Normally we're joined by Trey Griggs and Pedro. They are staving off some illnesses. They're getting some R&R for it. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, that's what we're trying to do here, is build community throughout this industry. Keep these conversations, normalizing these conversations. So find your tribe in your local area. One iron sharpens another, so can one man. Whatever that quote is. Iron sharpens iron, baby. Get after it.
Iron sharpens iron, one man. Okay. Hey, Chris Thomas, thanks for joining us. Perfect time, and love you too. All right. As one man sharpens another, iron sharpens iron. We'll catch you next week, Tuesday, 6 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Eastern. Let's go.